Well, a pastor invited people to his church and people took it the wrong way and he ended up apologizing. This is what can happen when you put yourself out there on social media. And this pastor, Ryan Welsh, now granted, the situation, this wasn't just a normal church invite. This was a situation where he saw something happening in his community and he addressed it and used the opportunity to bring people or to invite people to his church. Now, I have no problem. In fact, I commend, that's the right word, right? Commend Ryan Welsh, Pastor Ryan Welsh, for his courage to see this crisis and use it as a ministry opportunity. One of the things that I always strive for churches to remember, kudos to Ryan Welsh from Restoration Church in South Lake. You know, we need more church leaders to see ministry opportunities within crises. And I think Ryan did a good job recognizing that with all that's happening in Texas with these mega church pastors. And man, I'm heartbroken from Tony Evans. I mean, especially Tony Evans. He's done a lot for me in my life as a husband and father. But back to Pastor Ryan, he sees the landscape and he sees the position that he's in being across the street, and he uses that opportunity. And yeah, I'm going to say opportunity because it is an ministry opportunity where people are talking about the town. People are talking about church in the town. There were people probably planning, I would say most likely planning to visit Gateway that Sunday before the news came out. And the news comes out and they're like, hey, now what? They felt a pull of God to go or go back or return to church, and now they don't want to go to this one. There are some people who maybe were on the fence. Maybe they felt the Spirit calling them away from Gateway. And this is a great opportunity for Ryan, Pastor Ryan, to invite that person into his congregation, his fellowship, his faith community. All right. Do I think that he shouldn't have done this? No, I'm actually happy that he did this. I'm happy that he also included what makes his church very different. Okay. Or even just different. If you invite someone to church, they're going to assume your church is like every other church. And if they have a past of church hurt or just left out, flamed out, whatever, had a bad experience, or just got bored from another church that didn't, I think, properly teach and celebrate the amazing God that we worship, then when you just invite them generically to church, they're just going to assume you're like the other church. And when Ryan here invites people to his church, Restoration, they're just going to assume he's like Gateway. And in fact, it seems very different. Expository preaching, complementarianism, Reformed soteriology. Okay, I'm a marketer, not a pastor. They're ecclesiologically minded. No prosperity gospel, not a show. We don't live stream. Okay, which is fine. Every church is uniquely equipped to uniquely reach a unique group of people, so that's fine. So he said he knows that people from Gateway are going to visit his church because it's just location, proximity. I believe people shouldn't drive past their local grocery store to go to their local church, preferably. That's why we got to plant more churches, and not worry about consolidating churches, but really, just plant the field and be like a harvest, a field where like you don't have all the strawberries over here in one spot. They're equally covering the land. But he says, and then he ends it with a prayer, which kudos Ryan. But of course, this was met with people taking it the wrong way. Responses like, just remember, we are not numbers, part of a new story. Let's see. This post does not reflect well on you or your church at all. You're trying to benefit off the pain of others. We already spoke about that. Maybe I misread your intent, but it sounds like you're more concerned about acquiring however many of their members you can. Yeah, you misread the intent. I mean, that just makes no sense. Have been a member of Gateway for 10 years, and with all due respect, this is off-putting. Again, I see no ill intent with this. I see a man who sees a ministry opportunity and says, we need to invite people here. This is what's hurting our community. I will speak into this. If he said, hey, there's a storm that came through town, we have shelter in our church, would these people say, you're just using this crisis as an opportunity to get people in your church? No, they would say, thank you for the help. And that's exactly what Pastor Ryan's doing here. He says there's a crisis in our community. There's people that are having crises of faith. Our church is a haven here to come and hear the gospel, maybe even for the first time. I don't think he says that. I don't think he doesn't say flat out that they're false teachers, false prophets, wolves in sheep's clothing. He says we have something that's a little bit different or a lot different than what they had. And I like that approach. He's not tearing down another church that's already being torn down. He's building up the way that they do church, right? And Pastor Ryan did do a apology, if you want to call it that. For those that attend Gateway who were offended by my post, I apologize. My intention was not to make light of a very serious and devastating sin and crime. I didn't read that intention at all. I think people often read intentions based on their own baggage. So kudos to Ryan for stepping up and saying, "Hey, like, I take ownership of this." He said, contrary to the accusations of many of the comments, I'm not trying to capitalize on this horrible situation and grow my church. In fact, if you are looking for another church community, chances are that the church I pastor will not interest you because of the differences that he stated. That's a little counterintuitive. I could imagine, like, hey, there's 100 people in a room. Let me go ahead and invite them to church, even though one of them might only find themselves being actually served and edified in our congregation. But I do hope, Ryan says, and our elders are praying that you find a church that will love you, serve you, and minister to you with biblical and gospel clarity. Love that. And then at the end, he says, praise God. And I'm sure that could even rub some people in the wrong way. Like, hey, we're still mourning. Why are you praising? Because I think there is a mourning period after something like this. And he ends it with Romans 8:28, which, funny enough, that's more misinterpreted than I see. I could see this being more misinterpreted than something else. And of course, his apology doesn't get nearly as many, 1,978 views, whereas his original tweet had 415,000 views. What is that? 0.5% of people actually saw his apology. So all this to say, is there a lesson here? When you put yourself out there, you're going to get pushback. And again, I want to say kudos to Pastor Ryan here for sticking to what he said. He said, look, this wasn't my intention, but here was my intention. There are people that are going to be looking for a different church, and I want them to know about our church. And so I don't see this misread at all, but this is a reminder that when you do put yourself out there, either as the church account or your pastor account, people will misinterpret what you say. People will take it the wrong way, or they'll use it as an excuse to already validate their already existing opinions. Churches just want to grow. Churches just want to do this. They're all out after whatever, right? And that's not an excuse. That's certainly not an excuse to stop preaching the gospel. That's certainly not an excuse to stop discipling. And this is not an excuse to not always look out and say, where is God moving and where can we show up as well in this redemption story with God? And there is some church hurt. And like he said, God is still there. He is still present. He is still hopefully navigating the leadership through Gateway through this. And at the same time, he could also be directing Pastor Ryan, I believe, to use this to reach people in a new way that Gateway just couldn't do because they just weren't equipped for it. Not because they're lesser than, it's just because their church is uniquely equipped to uniquely reach a unique group of people, and Ryan's is uniquely equipped to uniquely reach a unique group of people. So what are your thoughts? Pastor Ryan should have not posted this? Should he have said, I'm sorry? Let me know in the comments below. Do you misinterpret this? Would you have said this a little bit different? Let's see how we can build each other up as well as move forward from this. Thank you all for watching. God bless, and I will see you all in the next video.